Because Christ said we should have one.
Where? Where in the entirety of the Bible does Jesus ever say that we need a pope? Because what you just did there is you made a thus saith the Lord claim, and yet you don't have any kind of evidence or proof to back up the claim that you just made. If there's any single part of the entirety of the Bible where Jesus says that you need a pope or that there should be a pope, present it right now, because there's absolutely not a single part in there. The burden of proof is upon yourself. You just made a claim that God said something that he has not said. You, as a pure definition, just shown yourself to be a false prophet, claiming that God said something that he did not say.
Okay, this challenge is super easy. The science of speech is called linguistics, and this is very important here. But before you refute with, the word pope wasn't even a thing until the 4th century and not officially used until the 11th century, please remember that these are just words, titles. Christian wasn't even a title until Acts 11, approximately a decade after the ascension of Christ. By the end of this video, you're going to understand whether spoken, written, or read, English, Greek, or Aramaic, rock is rock. This is called the science of linguistics, but I'm sure a self-proclaimed autodidactic like Taco already knows this. And with that, we're going to go over 2 verses, Matthew 16:18 and 1 Corinthians 10:4. But here are the bullet points. 1. Jesus spoke in Aramaic, which is a Semitic and not gendered language. 2. These verses were written in Koine Greek, a Hellenistic gendered language. 3. We are reading in English, a Germanic non-gendered language. 4. So the series goes non-gendered, gendered, non-gendered. 5. In 1 Corinthians 10:4, Paul uses the feminine noun Petra to refer to Christ because he is using it as a common noun, not a proper name or proper noun. So, let's get into it. Matthew 16:15. He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" What is another way of translating this question that still keeps the same message? Jesus is asking his disciples to define him. What is their definition of Jesus? And Simon responds, Matthew 16:16, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." To which Jesus answers him, Matthew 16:17, "Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven." And now Jesus is going to return the gift to Simon. Simon defined Jesus as the Christ, so now Jesus is going to define Simon. And let's remember, this was spoken in Aramaic, but written in Greek. Matthew 16:18, "You are Peter, Petros, masculine and proper noun, and on this rock, Petra, feminine and common noun, I will build my church." Petros is the masculine form of the word for rock and is used for Simon's new name. Petra is the feminine noun for rock, which refers to a large immovable rock or bedrock. Since Greek is a gendered language, a masculine name had to be used for Simon, hence Petros instead of Petra. But the meaning remains the same. The word Petros was chosen simply because Petra was feminine and unsuitable as a man's name. You wouldn't say a male's name Stephen is interchangeable with its feminine counterpart Stephanie, would you? No, of course not. However, in the context of 1st century Koine Greek, the words Petros and Petra were often interchangeables due to the subject of the meaning rock or stone. While the words themselves are masculine or feminine, while the objects that they're describing, a rock or stone, is without gender. Some Protestants argue that Petros means small stone and Petra means large rock, implying a distinction. However, that distinction existed mainly in classical Greek, not Koine Greek, the language of the New Testament. In Koine Greek, Petros and Petra meant rock. Jesus spoke in Aramaic, his native tongue. He would have said, "You are Kepha, and on this Kepha I will build my church." Aramaic does not have gendered nouns the same way Greek does. When translated into Greek, Kepha became Petros for the masculine name, but the meaning remains unchanged. Jesus is declaring Peter the rock upon which he will build his church. This aligns with the Catholic teaching that Jesus was appointing Peter as the foundation of the church. Now, 1 Corinthians 10:4, "And all drank the same supernatural drink, for they drank from the supernatural rock which followed them, and the rock, Petra, common feminine noun, was Christ." 1 Corinthians 10:4. Matthew 16:18 and 1 Corinthians 10:4. Who is the rock? And let's clear this up. Both Matthew 16:18 and 1 Corinthians 10:4 were written in Koine Greek, a gendered language. As stated before, the Greek word for rock is Petra, which is grammatically feminine. Jesus renamed Simon to Peter, Petros, which is the masculine form of rock, because Simon was a man. But the meaning remains the same. He is the rock upon which Jesus will build his church. Protestants claim that Petra can't refer to Peter because it's feminine, but here's the problem. In 1 Corinthians 10:4, Paul calls Jesus Petra, feminine, for they drank from the supernatural rock that followed them, and the rock was Christ. He's using Petra. Paul doesn't change the word to Petros. He still uses the feminine Petra, even though he's talking about Christ. So if Protestants argue that Peter can't be the rock in Matthew 16:18 because Petra is feminine, then by their own logic, Christ can't be the rock in 1 Corinthians 10:4 either, and that's a contradiction. The truth is, grammatical gender does not change meaning. Just like a table, la mesa in Spanish is feminine, but that doesn't mean all tables are feminine. The Catholic interpretation is correct. Peter is the rock in Matthew 16:18. Christ is also the rock in 1 Corinthians 10:4. Both use the same Greek word, petra, because it means solid rock or bedrock, not a small stone. And now let's move on to the other claims that Taco makes in his video. Let's start with the obvious. The word Pope isn't in the Bible, just like the words Trinity, altar call, sola scriptura, or Bible aren't in there either. But the office is. Jesus didn't use modern titles. He used his authority, structure, and roles. And when it comes to leadership of the church, he made this crystal clear. Matthew 16:18 and 19 states, "And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven." Jesus singles Peter out, you, not plural, singular. He gives Peter the keys, a symbol of dynastic succession and stewardship going back to Isaiah 22, where the steward of the Davidic kingdom receives the keys of the house of David and the authority to rule in the king's absence. Jesus is the son of David, establishing his kingdom, the church, and he appoints Peter to that office. John 21, Jesus risen from the dead gives Peter a threefold command. Feed my lambs, tend my sheep, feed my lambs. He doesn't say this to the group, he says it to Peter. That's leadership, that's shepherding, that's the office of a chief pastor. Luke 22, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan demanded to have you, plural, that he might sift you all like wheat. But I have prayed for you, singular, that your faith may not fail. And when you have turned again, strengthen your brethren. Jesus prays for Peter specifically, knowing he will fall, but also knowing that he will be the one to strengthen the others. Leadership, restoration, stability. That's a preview of apostolic succession. So no, Jesus didn't say the word Pope, but he installed the office. He gave Peter a unique role of leadership and left the church with structure. It's the early church that started calling Peter's successors in the Rome Papa, Father, Pope. And as for Taco's nonsense about Catholics having an insufficient Jesus, that's flat out false and heretical. The Catechism of the Catholic Church makes it clear in paragraph 613, Christ's death is both paschal sacrifice that accomplishes the definitive redemption of men and the sacrifice of the new covenant which restores man to communion with God. Paragraph 1545, the redemptive sacrifice of Christ is unique, accomplished once for all, yet is made present in the Eucharist in an unbloody manner, not repeated. We do not supplement Jesus. We participate in what he has instituted. The Pope doesn't replace Jesus. He serves Jesus by guarding the deposit of faith and guarding the church. That's biblical, that's historical, and that's Catholic. Taco's rant boils down to this. He doesn't understand how biblical authority works. He wants a Bible-only Christianity while ignoring what the Bible actually says about church structure. He ignores history, scripture, and 2,000 years of apostolic succession. If you're going to throw around accusations of heresy, Taco, at least read the book. Conclusion, Christ built one church on Peter just as he promised. This is what the church has taught for 2,000 years. It's later Protestant interpretations that have tried to twist it. Everybody, have a good day and God bless.